With global currency devaluation accelerating around the world and mining shares at historical lows, now is the time to own hard assets on sale. Mining Hall of Fame legend Mike Wazlowski, responsible for 16 mineral deposit discoveries, just announced a fully funded exploration campaign for Callinex Mines. Trading on the TSXV under CNX and on the OTCQX under CLLXF, with less than 5% of geologists ever making even one discovery, Mike's new resource stock has quickly gained the attention of famous resource investors like billionaire Carlos Savelli, a large shareholder of CNX. To learn more, visit futuremoneytrends.com/hardassets.
Hello everyone, and welcome into crushthestreet.com. My name is Kenneth Amaduri. And today we're going to be talking global economies and trends and talking about some currencies and the gold and what's going on around the world and global trends specifically. And I can't think of a better person to talk about all this with than Jim Rogers. Jim Rogers is a successful, legendary investor. He's the co-founder of the Quantum Fund. He has compounded his own wealth and the wealth of other people very successfully over the years, and he's even got a couple world records. He's an author, and I'm fortunate to be able to talk with him today. Jim, thanks for joining me.
Delighted to be here.
Jim, you mentioned something a while back, and I remember you talking about waiting for that opportunity, for a pile of cash to just be sitting in the corner, waiting for you to go and pick it up. And obviously you're talking about an investment opportunity, an obvious investment opportunity that is just presenting itself as clear value. And I just wanted to kind of talk to you about that. Have you taken action on anything substantial? And what do you see going forward with this sort of investing mentality?
And most of the time, many successful investors do nothing. They're either waiting to find things, and I've used the expression, wait until you see something where there's just money lying in the corner and all you have to do is go over and pick it up. Wait for a good opportunity, in other words. And if you find a good opportunity, then we'll probably do most of the time waiting for it to develop and mature. You're, of course, checking it all the time to make sure it's still correct. But most of the time, I do nothing, and many, many successful investors do nothing most of the time, just except waiting for the opportunity. At the moment, I don't think I have any new. The things I've invested in, and I'm still in. I have owned China for a long time. I bought more China last week. Russia, likewise. Japan, but this is not something new that I suddenly said, "Hey, let's go rush over and invest in Japan." I've already been investing in Japan for 3 years or so, and China and Russia. Agriculture is probably a good opportunity now. I own it, and it's certainly cheap. It hasn't been going up; it's been going down.
So it hasn't been like that pile of cash in the corner that you've described in the past. You haven't seen anything like that as specifically.
No, nothing new this week. It doesn't happen very often.
Right. I got it. I'm just wondering. I don't talk to you every day.
If I happen to see something today, it would be very, very coincidental and a stroke of pure luck, because it doesn't happen very often that you come across something that you know is going to do well.
Well, I guess, too, I was also thinking about oil and seeing what happened with the oil markets and the price per barrel in dollars getting slashed by over 50%. And maybe that was an opportunity that you were seeing as an opportunity where there is that pile of cash to go hard in some oil plays.
Well, oil is probably making a bottom, is in the process of making a bottom. I noticed there's been a lot, normally when things collapse, they fiddle around for a while, rally, and then they test the bottom. They test the lows again a few days, weeks, or months later. And it seems that may be what oil is doing now. And I will point out that I keep reading all sorts of bad news about oil, but it doesn't go down to new lows. And it's been my experience that when there's a lot of bad news and something does not go down anymore, it usually means a bottom is forming. And likewise, when something is going up and a lot of good news comes out and it doesn't go up, it usually means a top is forming. So you're probably right. A bottom is forming in oil. Something else that is more recent, I mean, I mentioned Russia, but I bought some Russian bonds a week or so ago, Russian government bonds in rubles, because the ruble, who knows, the ruble may collapse again. But in my view, the ruble is making or has made a bottom, and likewise interest rates in Russia. So if the ruble is bottoming and if interest rates are, about to start going down again, you'll get a double play owning Russian bonds, government bonds.
Yeah, no, that's exciting. And it's hated right now. I mean, as far as the Russian economy, the currency, it's one of those things that people just don't want to deal with right now. And of course, that could be one of those value plays over time.
Well, it's been my experience that when things like this happen or have happened in the past, it usually passes a year or two, or who knows, 5 years later. The world moves on, and the opportunity that existed is capitalized on by some people, and people forget all the bad stuff, and somebody makes a lot of money. I don't know that I will, but I hope so.
Jim, what's your current opinion and outlook on the U.S. economy? Are you optimistic that things will turn around, or are you more or less of the opinion that it's just slowly declining?
Well, things have turned around for some people. I mean, the U.S. government has printed staggering amounts of money and spent staggering amounts of money. The people who've been getting that money are very pleased, and so are their friends. So yes, it's happening for some people. It spread some, but it's very artificial. It's the first time in recorded history you've had all the major world central banks printing a lot of money at the same time. Japan, Europe, Great Britain, the U.S. So yeah, but it's certainly, things are a lot better for some people. But overall, it's not better because the debt is up very, very much all over the world. And second, it's artificial. It's based on artificial money printing and artificial spending.
It's amazing how this just kind of continues to chug along. But I know you're very bullish on Asia. In terms of the U.S. decline, where does Asia pick up the slack? Where does Asia come in with the U.S. declining? How does the Asian markets benefit from that? And I'm sure that's why you're investing, and you even live in that area. You live in Singapore. We're talking across the world right now. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, the largest creditor nations in the world now are all in Asia: China, Korea, Japan, Hong Kong, Taiwan, Singapore, even Russia, which is large, a lot of it's in Asia, are doing very well. They're creditor nations. The largest, U.S. is the largest debtor nation, not just the largest debtor nation in the world, but the largest in world history. So you have serious changes taking place in the world, and there are huge debtor nations in Europe as well. And despite all the talk of austerity, as you probably well know, every country is going to have higher debt this year than last year and higher debt next year than this year. So we don't really have any austerity anywhere, and the debt burden continues to rise. The reason 2008 was such a bad time was that there was so much debt in the world. Well, now the debt is much, much higher. And the next time we have an economic problem, it's going to be terrible because the debt has gone up so very, very much. Asia is a creditor, basically is a creditor region. It's a lower cost place to do business. Taxes are lower. Everything is, people save and invest here. The savings rate in China is over 35%. In the U.S., it's 2%. There are many statistics like that on Asian countries. I don't particularly like saying any of this since I'm an American citizen and taxpayer and voter like you, but we have to face facts, and things are not doing well.
What's specifically booming in Asia? And what specifically are you invested in?
I invest in all sorts of things. My largest investments are in China. The Chinese had a major economic conference in Beijing in November of 2013, where they announced and outlined the areas of the Chinese economy where they're going to be putting their most emphasis in the next couple of decades. Things like healthcare, pollution control, agriculture, railroads. I mean, my view is if the Chinese government's going to spend a gigantic amount of money on something, I should put some money there too. So those are my main areas in China. Tourism is obviously going to grow a lot in China. Well, maybe it's not obvious. Chinese have not been able to travel for centuries very much, but now, because of war and civil war and a lot of other reasons, but now it's easy to get a passport. It's easy to take money out of the country. The government encourages people to travel both in the country and internationally. So Chinese tourism is going to be one of the great growth industries of the next decade or two. There are 1,300,000,000 Chinese who've not been able to travel for centuries. Now they can and are encouraged to. So those are the kinds of areas in China where I'm investing. And as I say, I continue to buy shares in China.
I know you kind of mentioned Russia and investing in the bonds, but what currency do you feel most confident saving in? Like in terms of just money that you want to put somewhere and use at a later time, not necessarily investing, but just saving.
Well, at the moment, my largest currency position is the U.S. dollar and has been for a couple of years, not because I have any confidence in the U.S. dollar. As I said before, the U.S. is the largest debtor nation in world history. I own it because there's turmoil. There is turmoil, and there's more turmoil coming. And in times of turmoil, people look for a safe haven. They think the U.S. dollar is a safe haven. It is not a safe haven, given the debt situation in the U.S., but since many people perceive it that way, people will buy and will continue to buy the U.S. dollar. I mean, if things get as bad as they could in the next couple of years, the U.S. dollar could even turn into a bubble, at which point, if it happens, I hope I'm smart enough to sell my dollars, and who knows where I'll put money at that point. The Hong Kong dollar is tied to the U.S. dollar. I own it as well, on the theory that eventually the Chinese currency, the renminbi, will be convertible, at which point the Hong Kong dollar will disappear and all Hong Kong dollars will be converted into renminbi. I own renminbi too. These are some of the the answer to your question is I don't have an answer. There is no safe currency. There never has been and never will be.
Yeah, that's interesting. I want to just ask you another question about your success. You've had a lot of success compounding your wealth and the wealth of others. And what separates you from your average value investor who's read The Intelligent Investor by Benjamin Graham? Like, what has made you different and substantially successful than the average value investor that is out there?
Well, that's interesting. I consider those books by The Intelligent Investor and Security Analysis were two books I read early on in my investing career and was bowled over by them. And I've always taken the approach that the way to make money in the markets is to buy things that are very cheap. But I also said buy things that are cheap where there's some kind of change taking place. I guess maybe I consider myself a value person. I guess maybe the difference is that my horizons are not just limited to the New York Stock Exchange. If I find a cheap country, I invest in it. If I find a cheap industry or a cheap commodity, a cheap currency, my view is to invest in it. Ben Graham didn't sit around writing about countries or currencies or even commodities.
It's really cool that you were able to do that. I wanted to ask you about your world record, traveling around the world, and specifically how this has affected your investing. Have you been able to invest differently with a different perspective, having traveled all around the world in the way that you have?
Well, I have two world records for travel, one on a motorcycle and one in a car. But listen, that's not very relevant. It doesn't pay the rent, I assure you. No, the travels didn't change. They reinforced. I have always invested internationally. When I first went into the business, I can remember once, like in my first year or two, telling some guys about the Danish krona, and they were unbelievably confused and almost scared. They didn't know what I was talking about. So I have always invested around the world, but my trips have reinforced that. It shows me more and more where that things are happening, and some of the things that were happening became clearer. If you see the world close to the ground, or you check things from the ground up, you get a better understanding than if you just read about it.
Absolutely. Well, Jim, I got to ask you about gold. We've seen gold just face this headwind over the last few years, and where are we right now with that? And are you optimistic in the short term that we're going to see gold go higher?
I own gold. I've hedged a little of my gold, but no, I expect another opportunity to buy gold sometime in the next year or two. I'm not buying at the moment. If it happens, if there's another opportunity, I hope I'm smart enough to buy it. It depends on the world. I mean, if America goes to war with Iran next week, I'll buy gold at 1,700 and be happy to get it. But I'm expecting a better opportunity to buy gold sometime in the next couple of years, which I presume I will then buy more gold and more silver.
Awesome. Well, Jim, thanks so much for taking the time to talk to me. If people want to reach out to you or find more information on you, where would they go and what would they find?
Well, I don't really I'm not on Facebook or Twitter or any of that. I mean, there's some imposters using my name on many kinds of social media. I have a website, jimrogers.com, but there's not much there except my public schedule and stuff about my trip. So, I guess I can read my books. That's about all I know. Or go to my website and see where I'm speaking. They can come to one of my speeches if they want.
Definitely check out Jim Rogers' books. He's got Street Smarts, his latest one, and a few others. You're going to definitely enjoy them and his perspective on global economies. Thank you so much, Jim, for taking the time to talk to me today.
Anytime. Let me know when. Thank you. Bye-bye.